Cool. Okay. So as some of you may know, we have dialed down the Hydra boosters, but we didn't really dial them down completely, but we only unplugged the database. So what's the background to that? So Hydra boosters in general are just a collection of, so each Hydra booster has a couple of heads, and ProbeLab is operating quite a bunch of them. So all Hydras strive to improve the content routing performance, and ProbeLab is operating around 135 Hydras. And each of these Hydras has a bunch of heads, roughly around 10 to 15. So in total, ProbeLab is operating around 2,000 Hydra heads, which make up around 12% of the network. And the idea is that to distribute those Hydra heads in the hash space such that every provider record that is written into the DHT ends up at least one Hydra head. And this in turn will then improve content routing performance, because all Hydra heads are connected to the same database. And if you hit any other Hydra head in a completely different area on the key space, this Hydra head can grab the provider record from the common database and serve it right away, and you save a bunch of DHT hops there. And next to the content routing performance improvements, Hydras also serve as network bridges. And by operating them, they incur a significant cost to ProbeLab. And as we've heard in the previous Starfleet's all-hand presentation, we want to cut them down. So the goal was to save some costs on operating those Hydras, but with the constraint that we want to keep the network bridging functionality. So we cannot turn them off completely, but we need to keep them in the DHT for this network bridging. So we thought how we could decrease the cost, and the idea was to just unplug the database. So all the Hydra heads will stay in the network, but they won't have a common database anymore. So this means they won't store a provider record and they won't serve provider records anymore, and will only participate in peer routing. So they will still point to closer peers to a certain CID, but won't serve any data anymore. So this was the idea. And so the first thing that we did was, so what would be the performance impact of doing that, just unplugging the database? Is it reasonable, or is it too much? And for that, we deployed 2 fleets of 6 Kubo nodes into a diverse set of regions, or well, in 6 different regions. And once one fleet ignored all Hydra heads, so if I request some data, or if I request closer nodes to a certain CID, and the other peer returns some Hydra heads, I will just ignore those Hydra heads and will then take the closest node that is not a Hydra. And the second fleet is just a common and normal Kubo node and operates normally. And those fleets were just issuing a couple of retrievals from the network. So we're just constantly retrieving data from the network, and we were measuring the latency. So how long did it take to find the first provider record to a random CID? And on the right-hand side, you can see the data that we gathered in this measurement. So the blue lines, or so the blue bars are the ones that didn't ignore the Hydras, and the red bars are the ones that ignored Hydra responses. And then each set of bars is the 50th, the 90th, and the 95th percentile. And as we can see, that if we ignore the Hydra response, we incur a performance hit. So we can see that each retrieval gets a little slower. But as management has decided, this is reasonable. So we went ahead and dialed and unplugged the database in the back of the Hydra heads. And this happened on the 1st of December. And here we can see, on the x-axis, the date, and on the y-axis, the latency to find the first provider record. And each line is a different percentile. So we have the 50th, the 90th, and the 95th percentile. And these are hourly latencies that you can see here. And as you can also see, starting from the 1st of December, I think it's 5:30 UTC PM, We did the Hydra-DB switch, as I called it here. And as we can clearly see, there's like a step, like a performance degradation that's happening here. But how large is that? So we compared our prediction with what we've actually observed afterwards. And so this is the additional black bar that you can see here. And we can see that we underestimated the performance hit a little bit, not significantly, but we underestimated it a little bit. Yeah, we think that skipping hydras actually saves us a hop in the case when hydras don't reply with anything anymore. So this could be a reason why it's actually faster if we ignore hydras than when we don't ignore them, but they just don't reply with anything anymore. So the outcome is we have a 36% 36% cost savings, and the other cost driver for the hydras is the egress traffic from AWS, which make up around one third of the cost. And there's I did a back of the envelope calculation. I think most of the egress traffic is actually only the handshake, like TCP connection handshakes or like round trip times and protocol selection, multi-stream select. And so there's probably also some area of improvement. And I've written all of this up with plenty of more graphs in also a final report, same as Guy. And this is linked here, so feel free to have a read there as well. So that's it.